What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. In today's video, I got two things I want to talk about New York Jets related, as the New York Jets are linked to another receiver. This one's mostly by fans, but moral of the story, like a wide receiver. Another one, we talked about Deontay Johnson yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about a different receiver who seems like he is very likely to be traded. And Aaron Rodgers made a podcast appearance and actually talked a little bit about the Jets this time. So we have some things to share about Aaron Rodgers' thoughts on the 2024 New York Jets. All right, let us get rocking and rolling first with none other than Courtland Sutton, who is someone that I've mentioned a lot, someone that Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7's mentioned a lot. We both are really big fans of Courtland Sutton's game, and I think he'd be a really good fit for the New York Jets and pretty acquirable. Like, I don't think it's going to be some crazy costly thing to go out and land a Courtland Sutton who, let's be honest, is a steady wide receiver too. Is he a superstar wide receiver? No, I don't think anyone is going to be confused and say he's a superstar wide receiver, but is he a productive number two option in an offense? Absolutely. I think there's no doubt in my mind that he is. This past year, he's coming off a season that saw him put up 772 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's 6'4", 216 pounds. He's a jump ball, red zone threat guy. Russell Wilson, towards the end of last year, Russell Wilson was kind of just chucking the ball up and being like, I think Courtland's down there somewhere. He'll come down with it. And more often than not, he did. And it was in the end zone. He got in the end zone 10 freaking times last year, which was surprising because the 2 years prior, he had like 2 touchdowns a season. Like, this is a talented wide receiver. It's kind of reminiscent of, I don't know, guys like Garrett Wilson having 4 touchdowns in a season is preposterous. That's just absolutely ridiculous. But again, moral of the story here, Courtland Sutton, really steady number 2 option. The year prior had like 829 receiving yards. He did have an 1,100 yard season in his second year. I don't think you're needing him to do that. Garrett Wilson's going to be the focal point of this offense in the passing attack. You just need better complementary pieces, which something that Aaron Rodgers mentioned, by the way. But not only was he productive the last 2 years in Courtland Sutton, with 772 and 829 yards, he's on a pretty friendly team deal for the team that would be acquiring him. His salary this year is $13 million, and then his salary in 2025 would be 13.5. So that's not bad, especially when you consider, like, on the open market, paying a Calvin Ridley to be a wide receiver 2 at $18 to $20 million a year, or would you rather have Courtland Sutton for 13 to 13 and a half? But when you talk about the potential difference in cap, it could be big for this team. So I would be a fan of this, and I don't think it's going to be crazy costly. The Jets have 2 picks in the 4th round. Pick one of them and send it back. Hey, the pick that they have not their own, but the second 4th round pick is from the Denver Broncos in a trade where they sent Jacob Martin to the Broncos, and they pick swapped. The Jets sent their 5th round pick in Jacob Martin and got a 4th round pick this year, and send them back to 4th. I would gladly turn that 4th. What is it? Pick like 112 or 114. Send it back. Give me Courtland Sutton, and let's get on our merry ways here. So Aaron Rodgers was on a podcast with Cameron Haynes, who I believe is a bow hunter. They were linked together by Joe Rogan. Aaron Rodgers has made a few appearances on Rogan's pod, and apparently Rogan and this guy, Cameron Haynes, are friends, and he ends up getting, doing some bow stuff with him, and they do a podcast together. Whole episode's like 140, an hour and 40 minutes long. Didn't listen to the whole thing, kind of just skipped around a little bit. And then at the end, they actually talk some New York Jets. It's very rare that Rodgers goes on these podcasts and talks about the New York Jets, but they did spend some time talking about the Jets. And there were a few points that were brought up, like things we knew, like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is wearing number 8 because Joe Namath is number 12, and he is too much of a historian to, take 12 out of retirement and put it on himself. He has too much respect for, Joe Namath. And then, how upset he was over, only playing 4 plays. And, some of that stuff was good, but there were a couple little nuggets towards the end that I think were a little bit better. So when being asked about the 2024 team, he said, I like our chances, I like our guys, our coaches, but something that he called out by name are 2 things that Jet fans will be very happy to hear about. And it's not we're not splitting the atom here. It's pretty obvious. So he says you need to shore up the offensive line and maybe add another receiver. Correct. That's the two biggest things the New York Jets need to do. They need 3 starters. So that's a little bit more than shore up the offensive line. It's holy crap, we need to fix this thing right now. So free agency starts in a week from today, technically. The tampering period starts on Monday, so we'll have all that covered for you at the beginning of next week. A lot of moving pieces. Expect the Jets to be active on the offensive line, as well as wide receiver. In the first half of this video alone, we talked about Courtland Sutton. We've talked Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley. The list goes on and on. The Jets have to be active in adding another better receiver to this unit. Rodgers was asked about how much the Jets involve him with the players, and he did say that Joe Douglas and him talk often, but it's not all like, I want this guy, let's get this guy. He did say that, the front office has a job to do. They involve me, but I understand that they have a job to do, and sometimes they just talk about a cigar that they're having, or they're both like fishing and outdoors. Rodgers will send over a sunset out in Cali when, Joe Douglas is back in Jersey. So it's not just, hey, Joe, get me Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It's, hey, here's a picture of this cigar I'm having, and, back and forth. So they do talk. And as we know, this is not a surprise. Rodgers is involved in some of the guys that they're looking at, or they ask him his opinion on it. But I don't think it's Aaron Rodgers GM as much as some people like to portray that. Last thing, he talked about how great the defense was, and again mentioned in particular what the Jets need on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line and wide receiver. But he shouted out 2 people by names and was like, I hope they bring them back. So I think they will be back, and it's 2 guys who are pretty important and Jet fans would like, which is Thomas Morstead and Greg Zuerlein. Talked about how both those guys are a weapon. Greg Zuerlein could hit from anywhere on the field. Pretty much every kickoff's a touchback, and Morstead, how much of a weapon he was punting for the New York Jets and pitting teams inside the 20. And, they had a top 3 special teams last year. I think it would be wise to bring both those guys back. Bring us back as much as the defense as you can. Find a way to pay Bryce Huff. I know, like, I'm coming to grips with it, that I don't think he's going to be a New York Jet by the time we're talking next week. But please prove me wrong, Joe Douglas, and this organization. That would be a really nice surprise. So, he is optimistic on the 2024 Jets, likes their chances, and we'll see what they do in free agency. So let me know your thoughts on Rodgers' appearance, number 1, and also Courtland Sutton. Let me know what you would think about both those guys, Sutton on the Jets, and just the things that Aaron Rodgers brought up on the show. Let me know your thoughts. I'm Matt, and I'll catch you next time.